Hi guys, it's Mark from anypond.com, your trusted resource in the UK for ponds and water features, and today I'm super excited because we're building another wildlife pond here in Northamptonshire. Check out this space now. So what we're going to do is we're going to be putting in a 1 metre by 1.5 metre pond, 45 centimetres deep, a couple of different shelves, going to be putting in lots of lovely plants. It's a still water wildlife pond, so we're not going to have the sound of running water. It's going to be fantastic. So let's crack on and build this lovely, serene wildlife pond. Stay tuned for the Any Pond showcase. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is you need to think about the shape of the pond. So what we're going to do is we're going to break into this turf now, and then we're going to create a lovely shape for this wildlife pond. So let's get the turf removed and then I can start talking about the shape. So there we go. As you can see, I've taken off the turf and now we can start thinking about the shape of the pond. So what we've got here is we've got all of the turf taken up, and as you can see, I've just roughly edged the grass and I've mounded up the turf on the left hand side, because what we've got is we've got a grade change. You see, we've got a grade change and it's about 4 inches difference. So by banking this up, we can actually, compact and make that new level for the pond, rather than going down here, way down, and then having the water level actually level with the elevation change. What we can do is we can raise this up a little bit and create more of a mound, create more of a sort of like a planting pocket, a break for the wildlife. We don't have to drop this so much. If we drop this one sort of like 8 inches to a foot, then what we would need is we would need a retaining edge or a big 45-degree slope bank down to the pond. But because we've mounded this turf up, no problem. Yes, it will settle. So to start with, it may look very high, but it is going to settle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work out the rough sort of shape, continue the line that I've made with the lawn, but I'm going to start creating the shape and creating that level and using the spirit level. I've got 2 spirit levels. I've got a 4 foot and a 2 foot, just to create a lovely area. So the first thing I'm going to do is to get that level top shelf, and then I'll show you what we're going to do. So one thing I wanted to point out before I start the time-lapse running again is that it's actually level now. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this pond to 3 levels. So we're going to have a 6-inch shelf, a foot shelf, and then down to 18 inches. The 18-inch area is to allow all of the British wildlife that needs to hibernate in a pond to hibernate. So if you want 18 inches, perfect. If you just want frogs, so you're doing a dedicated frog pond, 12 inches is fine, because they actually hibernate out of the water. But if you want newts, if you want toads, and 18 inches or 45 centimetres is much, much better. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start creating those shelves and digging out. So the next stage will be putting in the liner, but I'll talk to you before that. So now what we've got is we've got all of the groundwork finished, and let me just show you into the hole. So what we've got is we've got the 18-inch section, we've got a 12-inch section, and then we've got a 6-inch section. We've piled up the soil all the way around, so there's not just one great big mound of soil at the back there, because then that would look unnatural. So let me get out of the hole and we're going to start rocking. Get the liner in, and then we can start adding rocks, gravel, plants and everything else. So as you can see, we're getting on, we've got some gravel, we've got some rocks. Let me go and show you how to put in a planting pocket now. So what we've got here is we've got a ring of stones, and we've got some gravel on the left-hand side, and we've got a stone on the right-hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a planting pocket here. So that's better. What we're going to do is we're going to put in a lovely little planting pocket. So the first job is to get some underlay that we use as an overlay to create that planting pocket. So we just take a little bit of spare fleece. Now you can use a bit of offcut, or you can use a new bit, but what you've got to be careful of is you've got to make sure that it's aquatic safe. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get the Stanley. One thing you need to think about is when you're using a Stanley blade is you want to use a new hooked Stanley blade, because if it's not new, then it doesn't give you a silky smooth cut. As you can see, what I'll do is I'll cut this little bit of a tag end off. If you see how silky smooth that is. Now if I change to another blade, this isn't a sharp blade, you can see I'm really giving that's not a sharp blade. So you want to use the other blade, or change the blade to a silky smooth one, and then you can cut it real nice, which is one of the reasons why I use a knife over scissors, is because you can get that silky smooth cut. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in this planting pocket. I've got the little bit of fleece, and all this does is it stops the soil from washing down or leaching down. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a pot type of structure. I'm going to use another little bit of fleece over here, because I don't want the soil mixing in with the pebbles. Actually, what I'll use is I'll use one big bit. So rather than a couple of small bits, I'm going to use a bigger bit. So what you want to focus on is you want to focus on this. This is the wall. I'm not going to have the soil any higher than this. So it's just literally lay the fleece down on the front edge of the wall where it's going to be. So I'm not going to have any soil higher than this. So I'm just focusing on this. If I had it over here and then I had to tuck this in, I'd have to cut this off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right down here, lovely, and then push all the voids, cover over that gravel so the aquatic soil doesn't go into that gravel. And then what we'll do is we'll put some soil in, I've got the aquatic soil here now. So the reason why I'm using aquatic soil over garden soil is because it's actually got chelated iron in the aquatic soil. And you might be asking, Mark, what is chelated iron? Well, it's a feed for aquatic plants that stays within the soil. So if you're using normal fertilizer, you've got to be careful on what plants you actually use, because if they're not taking nutrients out of the water, you can actually be feeding the algae. So creating the planting pocket using an aquatic soil, and essentially what aquatic soils are is they're a sandy loam with chelated iron or aquatic fertilizer rather than high organic load. So yes, you can use normal garden compost if you're making garden compost, but don't put as much in unless you're going to be feeding a real hungry plant. So I'll do another couple of videos of how to, pot plants up. If you're not building an aquatic or a wildlife pond like this one, then what you want to do is containerize your plants, but we're going to do that within the actual wildlife pond here now. So the reason why I create wildlife planting pockets is because what I don't like to do is I don't like to have aquatic soil all the way over a pond. The reason why I don't want it all over the pond is because the whole pond becomes as a planting pocket. So let's say that you dig a hole and fill lots of topsoil back over the top of the liner. What you end up with is a great big bowl of water plants. Rather than creating pockets, if you create the pockets, you can manage them a lot easier. And if you wanted to come in, let's say in 3 years' time, and move stuff around, it's not a major problem. Where if you covered the whole pond, it's a nightmare, because if you're trying to cut out sections of plants, you imagine a garden that you can't dig, it's going to be a lot of work. And with the water, it's a nightmare to get in. So creating these planting pockets, it's a much better way of managing your water plants. So poke it into all of the gaps. And then what you want to do is you want to come in with the plants. This one here, as you've probably seen in another video, is Scirpus cernus. This is a fibre optic plant and it stays evergreen. The reason why I use it on wildlife ponds is because it's evergreen. It stays active all year, all winter, and it creates that bit of cover for frogs, newts, toads, and it just looks amazing all year long, where a lot of the other plants, then they're not going to create that interest in the winter. So that's essentially a planting pocket. Now this will fill out and create a lovely specimen plant. As you've seen, I've just put 4 plants in this planting pocket, but eventually, even now, it almost looks like one plant. But eventually this is going to take over and it's going to be a lovely, great big clump like this. Now let's say that you wanted to split this up. In 3 years' time, you can come along and remove this, no problem, because what you can do is you can break some of the wall away and you can get in there and you can turn that fleece back on itself and manage the plant a lot better. There's a couple of plants that I wouldn't put in wildlife ponds like this, in planting pockets or rocks and gravel, is because they spread all over the place. It's exactly the same as the reason why we don't put water lily pockets into ponds, because if you put a water lily pocket into the bottom of a pond, what the water lilies do is they come out and then they go along the gravel, and what ends up happening is you end up with a lily pot. It might be a 7 metre by 5 metre lily pot. What you want to do with water lilies is containerize them. Let me crack on with this planting pocket. I think I'm going to put some primulas at the back here. So what I've decided to do now is I've decided to put some primulas in the back here, and it just gives it a bit more interest, and probably a couple of flowers popping up out of here. So if I'm going to put in some Primula denticulata, If you want any more information about these plants, check out some of my other videos. So you might be thinking Primula denticulata is going to get quite big. Yeah, I understand that. And the reason why I'm planting it next to Scirpus cernus is because that's going to get big as well. So it's putting in the plant at the back of the pocket. So we're going to have some lovely plants. Just trimming the leaves. So these are going to come up right up to here, and they're going to have lovely white and different types of flowers. Doesn't that look fantastic? So that's companion planting. What I also might do is I might put some of the Veronica in this, or some of the watercress, just to make it a bit more of a companion planting. So what you want to do is have a look now at the attention to detail. What I've done is I've put in a log. As you can see here, it starts, there's a natural log that runs along. And I created the edge of the planting pocket. So there's a piece of fleece that comes up at the back of that log. I've also got a piece of cork that you can see up in there, and a frog can go up there and come out the top, no problem. So frogs, newts, and all sorts of aquatic creatures, they love hidey holes, they love caves. So what I've done is I've created a few more rock caverns in here, and as you can see, we've got little bits of waterfall foam that are securing the rocks in place. We've got the watercress in there, we've got the brook lime in there, we've got the water plantain, and we've got a nice stone barrier, and then we've got the planting pocket this side with the primulas. We've got primulas, lychnis. So hopefully you've been inspired by what we've done with this pond. Now let's get some water in there and invite the wildlife back into the pond. just show you a nice close-up now. So what we've got here is we've got the overflow of the actual pond. So if the pond ever rises up too high, then it overflows and goes down the border there. We've got some lovely planting pockets, we've got some lovely driftwood, we've got the log. That's me done. Now I'm going to go and video edit this. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video.